The sprawling campus of the Galactic Diplomatic Academy on Zarnath buzzed with activity as students from myriad races streamed between lectures and labs, a hive of the galaxy's future leaders and thinkers. Among them, Kaxar, a lean and focused Riothran youth, navigated through the crowd with a determined stride, his 4 eyes scanning his datapad. Today, unlike other days filled with strategic simulations and historical analyses, was marked by the arrival of a special guest from Earth, Captain Marcus Hale, a human known not just for his diplomatic finesse, but also for his wartime leadership. This rare intersection of war and diplomacy drew Kaxar's intense interest. Humans, though frequent subjects in galactic discussions, remained enigmatic, particularly in their approach to conflict. As he reached the auditorium, Kaxar spotted his classmate, Lears, a Tesorvan known for his skeptical questions and keen insight. "Lears, are you here for Captain Hale's lecture too?" Lears, adjusting his sensory antennae, nodded. "Yes, I hear humans have an unusual take on war. It seems they go to great lengths to avoid it, which is peculiar for such a capable species." "That's exactly what I intend to find out," Kaxar replied, his voice carrying a mix of curiosity and excitement. "Their history doesn't line up with their current policies. Something must have shifted their paradigm." They found seats near the front, just as Captain Hale stepped onto the podium. The man was in his late 40s, his hair peppered with gray, and he carried himself with an ease that belied his formidable reputation. The hall quieted, all eyes fixed on the human who began to speak with a clear, resonant voice. "Good morning, esteemed students," Hale started, his eyes briefly meeting Kaxar's, noting the intensity of his gaze. "Today we discuss not just human history, but our philosophy on war and peace. Humanity has indeed fought wars, some necessary, others regrettable. But through each, we have learned that the true strength of a civilization lies not in its ability to wage war, but in its ability to prevent it." Kaxar whispered to Lears, "Ask him why they choose prevention over action." Lears nodded and during the question period stood up. "Captain Hale, you speak of prevention. Is this a strategy born of past failures? Why do humans not assert their dominance more aggressively when threatened?" Hale smiled faintly, as if expecting this line of inquiry. "A thoughtful question. Let me say the path to our current stance has been costly. Humanity learned through its darkest times that every conflict leaves a scar. These scars taught us the value of diplomacy. We believe in strong defense, but not in aggression, in dialogue, but not in suppression." Kaxar felt a surge of frustration. These answers only skimmed the surface. He stood up, his voice steady but insistent. "Captain, if I may follow up. History is replete with civilizations that thrived on conquest. Are humans saying they have evolved beyond this, or is there an underlying fear of repeating a particularly disastrous past?" The room tensed at Kaxar's directness, but Hale maintained his composure. "You are perceptive. It is true. Our past is marked by a period we call the Cataclysm, a series of global conflicts that nearly ended us. From those ashes, we chose a new path. It's not about fear, it's about choice. Humanity chose to remember its past to secure a more peaceful future." As the lecture concluded and the audience dispersed, Hale approached Kaxar and Lears. "You both seem genuinely interested in this subject. Would you like to discuss this further over a meal? There's much more to share beyond what time allows in a lecture." Kaxar and Lears exchanged a look, mutual intrigue in their eyes. "We would be honored, Captain," Kaxar replied, realizing that this was his chance to delve deeper into the enigma of humanity. As they walked toward the Academy's dining hall, the stage was set for a deeper exchange, perhaps even revealing the hidden layers of human strategy and the true reasons behind their diplomatic front. A conversation that could change Kaxar's understanding of not only humanity, but also of what it meant to wield power responsibly in the galaxy. The dining hall of the Galactic Diplomatic Academy was a grand chamber, its walls lined with holograms of the galaxy's great peace treaties. Under this symbolic canopy, Kaxar, Lears, and Captain Marcus Hale settled into a secluded corner, surrounded by the ambient hum of conversations from other species discussing politics, technology, and the future. As they took their seats, a server robot glided towards them, dispensing a variety of dishes tailored to each species' dietary requirements. Kaxar noted the simplicity of Hale's meal, a stark contrast to the more elaborate dishes of his own and Lears's. "Captain Hale, if I may begin," Kaxar said, his voice eager but measured. "You spoke of choices and the hard lessons learned by humanity. Could you elaborate on what specific events led humans to so profoundly value peace?" Hale paused, considering his words carefully. Certainly, Kaxar. Our history is not unlike many others. It is punctuated by periods of intense conflict. But there were turning points, moments where we faced our own extinction. One such event was the Third World War, followed by environmental collapses that forced us to the brink. We realized then that no victory in battle could compensate for a devastated planet or a broken society. Leers, who had been quietly absorbing the conversation, chimed in. So, it was survival that taught you peace. Is that the lesson we should take? That peace is merely a survival strategy? Hale smiled slightly at the question. It started as a survival tactic, yes, but over time it evolved into a fundamental value. Our global governance structures were reformed to prioritize dialogue over declaration, cooperation over conflict. It's embedded in our education, our politics, even our technology. Kaxar, intrigued by this philosophical shift, pressed further. But how do you maintain this stance in a galaxy where not all civilizations hold these values? Isn't it a strategic disadvantage? Hale leaned back, his gaze thoughtful. On the contrary, it's a strategic advantage because it's unexpected. Many conflicts are based on predictable reactions. Aggression begets aggression. But when one party refrains from escalating, it often leads to confusion, and then to a reassessment of the situation by the aggressor. Our approach has helped us forge strong alliances and, in some cases, even disarm potential conflicts. As they continued to discuss, the conversation shifted from historical lessons to practical applications. Hale shared anecdotes from his diplomatic missions, where restraint and a willingness to listen had diffused volatile situations. Kaxar listened, fascinated by the human's nuanced understanding of power dynamics. Leers, however, seemed skeptical. But doesn't this philosophy have limits? What when faced with an unequivocal threat? How does humanity respond then? That's a valid concern, Hale admitted, his expression turning serious. We are not pacifists. We maintain a robust defense capability. The difference is we deploy force as a last resort, and even then, it's calculated to minimize harm and encourage rapid reconciliation. The conversation deepened as they explored scenarios where human principles were tested. Kaxar was struck by the balance humans strove to maintain, a razor's edge between moral philosophy and practical necessity. As the meal concluded, Hale extended an invitation. Kaxar, Leers, why don't you join me tomorrow at the simulation lab? I'll be conducting a workshop on crisis negotiation. It might give you both a practical view of how these theories translate into real-world actions. Kaxar accepted eagerly, realizing that understanding humanity's approach could offer profound insights, not just into diplomacy, but into the broader questions of what made civilizations rise, fall, and, most curiously, endure. As they parted ways, Kaxar felt a growing respect for the complexity of human strategy. It was not just about avoiding war, but about shaping the very nature of conflict itself. Tomorrow's workshop promised to reveal even more about the subtle art of human diplomacy, an art that seemed to quietly weave its way through the fabric of the galaxy's turbulent politics. The next morning, Kaxar and Leers arrived at the simulation lab, a state-of-the-art facility equipped with holographic projectors and AI-driven scenarios tailored to replicate real interstellar crises. As they entered, they found Captain Marcus Hale already setting up, his demeanor focused, yet approachable. Glad you could join me, Hale greeted them, initiating the simulation console. Today, we're going to delve into a negotiation scenario that I personally encountered on a mission to the border regions of the Tarkin sectors. Kaxar, keen to see theory applied in practice, watched as the lab transformed into a vivid recreation of a starship bridge, complete with views of distant stars and the tense atmosphere of a standoff. As you see here, Hale began, pointing to the holographic displays showing two fleets in a deadlock. The situation was delicate. Our task was to prevent a conflict that could easily escalate due to historical tensions. Kaxar observed how Hale navigated the simulation, choosing dialogue options that emphasized mutual benefits and shared risks. He noted Hale's strategy of maintaining an open posture and using calm, measured tones. Notice, Hale instructed as he maneuvered through the dialogue, how I steer the conversation towards common ground, rather than points of contention. It's about finding the thread that binds both parties, even if it's thin. Leers, meanwhile, seemed intrigued but unconvinced. He questioned, but what if the other side perceives this as weakness? Isn't there a risk of encouraging more aggressive demands? Hale paused the simulation, turning to address Leers directly. That's a critical question. It's about balance, showing enough strength to not be underestimated, while also extending the olive branch. Let me show you. The scenario resumed with Hale demonstrating a firm yet diplomatic stance, insisting on safeguards and verification measures that assured mutual compliance. This way, he explained, we build trust but also protect our interests. It's not weakness, it's strategic patience. As the simulation concluded with a peaceful resolution, Kaxar felt a mix of admiration and puzzlement. The nuances of human diplomacy seemed almost counterintuitive, yet undeniably effective. With the session over, Kaxar approached Hale with a more personal inquiry. "Captain, may I speak with you privately?" Hale nodded, leading Kaxar to a quiet corner of the lab. "What's on your mind?" Kaxar hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I've been studying human history and your diplomatic policies with great interest. I understand the principles, but I'm curious about something deeper. What drives humanity on an emotional level to choose these paths? History is filled with conquerors, yet you choose to be peacemakers. Why?" Hale regarded Kaxar thoughtfully before responding. "That's a profound question. After enduring our own dark times, we came to a collective realization. Enduring peace is more valuable than temporary victories. Emotionally, we've felt the cost of war in our families, our communities. It's a pain that spans generations. Perhaps it's that memory, that collective scar, that drives us." Kaxar listened intently, the concept of collective memory resonating with him. "So it's not just a policy but a cultural ethos?" "Exactly," Hale confirmed. "It's woven into our cultural fabric. Our stories, our films, our education, all echo the theme of reconciliation and the pursuit of harmony. It's become a part of who we are." As they parted ways, Kaxar felt his perspective shifting. The complexities of human behavior, influenced by their history and culture, painted a picture of a race that had learned to navigate the galaxy not with force, but with foresight and empathy. This insight was not just academic. It felt deeply personal, urging him to reflect on his own race's approaches and perhaps reconsider the value of peace over power. In the days following the simulation workshop, Kaxar's mind was filled with new thoughts and questions about humanity's unique approach to conflict. Driven by a growing fascination, he decided to dive deeper into human history and its diplomatic ethos. He accessed the Academy's extensive archives, spending hours poring over digital tomes, classified documents made accessible for academic research, and visual histories depicting human wars and their aftermath. Late one evening, in the dim light of the archive room, Kaxar stumbled upon a document titled The Protocol. It was mentioned briefly, with very little explanation, in an obscure diplomatic memo. Intrigued, Kaxar decided to investigate further. He found that the Protocol was a series of guidelines adopted by Earth's governments after the last global conflict, a turning point in human history marked by unprecedented destruction and a near collapse of civilization. The document outlined principles for engagement in warfare, emphasizing restraint, the importance of minimizing civilian casualties, and the strategic use of diplomacy as a primary tool before any military action. It was clear that the Protocol wasn't just a set of rules, it was a philosophical shift, a commitment to ensuring that humanity would never again come close to self-annihilation. Kaxar's discovery was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Hale, who seemed unsurprised to find him deep in research. "Finding what you're looking for?" Hale asked, an eyebrow raised in mild amusement. "Yes and no," Kaxar replied, his expression a mix of excitement and confusion. "I found references to the Protocol. It seems to be a cornerstone of how humans manage conflict post-cataclysm. But there's something elusive about it, like there's more to it than what's written down." Hale nodded, pulling up a chair beside Kaxar. "The Protocol is as much about what is unsaid as what is said. After the cataclysm, our leaders realized that survival isn't just about avoiding the end of the world. It's about preserving what makes us human, our compassion, our empathy, our ability to reason beyond immediate gains." Kaxar absorbed Hale's words, realizing the depth of the transformation humanity had undergone. "So it's a moral guide, not just a strategic one?" "Exactly," Hale confirmed. "It guides our military, our diplomats, and even our citizens in how we think about and engage with the world. It's why we build alliances, why we prioritize aid and support over military intervention. We've learned that lifting others up can be more beneficial than pushing them down." The conversation shifted as Kaxar asked about the practical applications of such a philosophy. Hale provided examples from recent diplomatic missions where the protocol had subtly shifted potential conflicts towards peaceful resolutions. Each story was a testament to the power of these principles in action. As the night grew deeper, Kaxar felt a profound shift in his understanding of humanity. The protocol wasn't just a policy, it was a reflection of a collective human spirit reborn from the ashes of their darkest times. It was a hope that by changing themselves, they might inspire a change in the galaxy. Thanking Hale for his insights, Kaxar left the archives with a new sense of purpose. He was beginning to see that his initial quest for understanding human avoidance of war was leading him toward a larger, more complex discovery about the transformation of a species through its philosophy and moral evolution. As he walked back to his quarters under the starlit sky of Zarnath, Kaxar realized that the real story was not just about humans avoiding war, but about how they chose to redefine power and strength in terms that were not merely about domination, but about enduring peace and mutual respect. This revelation, he knew, would not only enrich his thesis, but might also offer a new path for his own people, and perhaps even the broader galactic community. After his deep dive into human history and the protocol, Kaxar's academic curiosity had transformed into a profound respect for humanity's journey from the brink of self-destruction to leaders in galactic diplomacy. This newfound understanding, however, was about to be tested in a manner he hadn't anticipated. A few days later, while Kaxar was reviewing his thesis notes in a common area of the Academy, he overheard a heated discussion among a group of students from a militant species known as the Skarn. They were planning a provocative maneuver against a human outpost on the edge of the neutral zone, convinced that humans' aversion to conflict would guarantee an easy takeover, potentially gaining them a strategic advantage in their territorial disputes. Disturbed by this revelation, Kaxar debated his next move. Approaching the Skarn directly could be dangerous. Their culture valued strength and viewed diplomatic interventions as weakness. Instead, he decided to seek advice from Captain Hale, whom he found in his office preparing for another lecture series. "Captain, I need to discuss something urgent with you," Kaxar began, his voice tense with concern. "I've learned about a potential attack planned against a human outpost by the Skarn. They believe exploiting what they perceive as human weakness will lead to a quick victory." Hale's expression hardened at the news, but his response was calm and measured. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Kaxar. It's unfortunate, but not unexpected. There are always those who mistake our desire for peace as a vulnerability. We need to address this swiftly but thoughtfully." "What will humanity do? Will you defend yourselves?" Kaxar asked, worried about the implications of a conflict. Hale paused, considering his words carefully. "We will protect our people, certainly. But our response will be calculated to avoid escalating the situation. The protocol guides not just our actions in peace, but also in conflict. We aim to de-escalate, to communicate, and to resolve conflicts with the minimum necessary force. Our goal is not just to end battles, but to prevent wars." Seeing Kaxar's puzzled look, Hale added, "Perhaps this is something you need to see firsthand. Why don't you join me? Observe our response and use it as a case study for your thesis. It could provide unique insights into how these principles are applied under real threat." Grateful and intrigued, Kaxar agreed. The next day they boarded a fast transport to the human outpost, arriving just as tensions with the Skarn were reaching a critical point. The outpost was on high alert, but the atmosphere among the human forces was controlled and deliberate, not panicked. Kaxar was given access to the command center, where he watched as human commanders engaged in intense communication with both Skarn aggressors and various diplomatic channels. They employed a mix of surveillance to monitor Skarn movements and back-channel negotiations to seek a peaceful resolution. As the Skarn began their approach, human forces initiated a series of non-lethal deterrents designed to slow the advance and demonstrate their readiness to defend themselves without immediately resorting to lethal force. Simultaneously, human diplomats relayed real-time updates to Skarn leaders about the potential consequences of their actions, emphasizing the benefits of standing down and engaging in talks. Throughout the ordeal, Kaxar was struck by the discipline and focus of the human team. Their approach was a complex dance of strength and restraint, aggression paired with openness to dialogue. Finally, after hours of standoff, the Skarn withdrew, their leaders having reluctantly agreed to enter negotiations, swayed by the realization that the human outpost was not the soft target they had presumed, and that further aggression would only lead to unnecessary losses. As they returned to the Academy, Kaxar reflected on the experience. The humans had managed to protect their outpost and personnel, not by overwhelming force, but through strategic patience and a deep commitment to their principles. This experience would provide a powerful chapter in his thesis, illustrating that human mercy and restraint were not signs of weakness, but of a profound and effective strength. The return to the academy marked a significant shift in Kaxar's perspective. He was deeply impressed by humanity's handling of the Skarn threat, a demonstration of tactical restraint and diplomatic prowess under pressure. But as he resumed his academic pursuits, another challenge loomed on the horizon. News broke out that the Skarn, humiliated by their failed intimidation and the subsequent negotiations, were regrouping for a more significant, direct assault on human territories. Their leaders, unable to accept the setback, aimed to prove their might and erase the perceived disgrace. This time, the target was a vital human research facility on the border of Skarn space, a location critical not only for its scientific value, but also for the strategic advantage it offered. Kaxar learned of the imminent threat during a seminar on interstellar law. He excused himself abruptly and sought out Captain Hale, who was already in a meeting with his diplomatic team, discussing potential responses. "Captain Hale, I've heard about the Skarn's plans for a second attack. This seems like an escalation that could lead to an all-out conflict." Kaxar expressed his concerns, his voice tense with urgency. Hale nodded solemnly. "Yes, we are aware, and we are preparing. Our intention remains to avoid a war, but we will defend our interests decisively. It's a delicate balance, Kaxar, between showing strength and continuing to seek peace." Kaxar was invited to observe the preparations at the human military command stationed on a nearby planet. As they traveled to the command center, Kaxar saw firsthand the mobilization of human forces, both defensive and diplomatic. Upon arrival, Kaxar was struck by the organized chaos. Officers coordinated defense strategies, while diplomats communicated with various interstellar entities to rally support and mediate the crisis. Despite the urgency, there was a palpable commitment to maintaining the protocol. Every action was measured, every decision weighed for its impact. The Skarn launched their attack 2 days later. Kaxar watched as human forces engaged with a calm efficiency. The human fleet, strategically positioned to defend the facility, utilized non-lethal weapons and maneuvering tactics designed to incapacitate the Skarn ships rather than destroy them. "Notice how we target their propulsion and weapon systems. Our goal is to disable, not to destroy," explained one of the fleet commanders, a veteran officer named Admiral Sorensen, who had been briefed on Kaxar's interest and academic focus. The battle was intense but brief. The human forces, while robust in their defense, continually opened channels for dialogue, offering the Skarn a way out, an opportunity to retreat without further conflict. Simultaneously, human diplomats worked tirelessly, communicating with Skarn officials, emphasizing the cost of continued aggression and the benefits of disengagement. Despite their initial ferocity, the Skarn forces began to falter as their losses mounted without significant gains. The realization that this conflict would not be a swift victory began to sink in among their ranks. Gradually, the Skarn ceased their advance, their commanders finally accepting the offer to negotiate. In the aftermath, as Kaxar reflected on the events, he was profoundly impacted by the effectiveness of human strategy. It was not merely their military tactics, but their relentless pursuit of peace, even in the midst of conflict, that had averted a wider war. Their ability to fight precisely and judiciously, to incapacitate rather than annihilate, spoke volumes about their commitment to the protocol and their deeper philosophy. This experience provided Kaxar with critical insights for his thesis. He realized that human mercy was not merely theoretical, but a practical, influential force in galactic affairs. It demonstrated that peace could be proactive, a strategy as powerful as any weapon in the human arsenal. As he documented the events and their resolution, Kaxar knew that this chapter of his study would highlight a pivotal lesson for all species, that true strength lay in the power of restraint and the courage to pursue peace, even when war seemed inevitable. In the aftermath of the Skarn retreat, the galactic community buzzed with discussions and debates about the implications of humanity's strategic prowess, combining diplomacy with limited military engagement. Kaxar, whose respect for human tactics had deepened, decided it was crucial to fully understand and articulate the philosophies underpinning human actions, the mysterious protocol he had encountered in his research. He arranged a final meeting with Captain Hale at a quiet spot on the Academy's sprawling gardens, seeking to draw out the nuances of the protocol and its broader significance to human and galactic history. As they walked among the alien flora, Hale began to speak, his voice reflective. The protocol, Caxar, is more than just a set of guidelines for conflict resolution. It represents a commitment to our core values, values reshaped by our turbulent past. After the cataclysm, humanity was at a crossroads. We could continue down the path of destructive warfare, or we could forge a new path based on understanding, empathy, and mutual respect. We chose the latter. Caxar listened intently, recording the conversation for his thesis. So, it's a living document? Evolving as humanity learns from each new encounter? Precisely, Hale affirmed. It's dynamic, adapting to new challenges and circumstances. But the core principles remain unchanged. Minimize harm, maximize dialogue, and maintain moral integrity, even in the face of aggression. Seeing Caxar's deep interest, Hale suggested a more tangible exploration of the protocol. Why don't we visit the Human Diplomatic Archives tomorrow? I can show you some declassified documents that illustrate how the protocol has been applied and modified over different eras and situations. The next day at the archives, Caxar was given access to a range of documents, from diplomatic communications and military dispatches to strategic plans, all illustrating the protocol in action. He saw how it influenced not only military strategies, but also economic policies, development aid, and environmental treaties. One particular document caught his eye, a treaty mediated by humans to resolve a water dispute on a drought-stricken planet, where the protocol's principles had guided the negotiations, leading to a solution that not only averted war, but also created a sustainable water-sharing plan that benefited all parties involved. Seeing this, it's clear the protocol is not just about avoiding war, Caxar mused aloud. It's about building a framework for sustainable peace. Hale nodded. Yes, and it's this aspect that has gained us respect, and sometimes skepticism, in the galactic community. But we've found that over time, even the most skeptical come to see the benefits of this approach, not only for peace, but for prosperous coexistence. Caxar spent the next several weeks analyzing the documents, integrating these insights into his thesis. His final chapter aimed to showcase how the protocol could serve as a model for other civilizations, advocating for a shift from a reactive stance on war to a proactive stance on peace. As he presented his findings in a packed seminar room at the Academy, Caxar emphasized the transformative power of the protocol. Humanity's journey shows us that the legacy of war can be a legacy of learning and growth rather than one of destruction and despair. The protocol isn't just a policy, it's a testament to the possibility of moral evolution. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with many students and faculty expressing a new appreciation for the depth and practicality of human strategies in diplomacy and conflict resolution. Caxar's presentation sparked lively debates and discussions about the potential for integrating similar principles into other species' policies. As the seminar concluded, Caxar felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. He had not only completed his thesis, but had also contributed to a broader understanding of peace and conflict. Reflecting on his journey, he realized that his initial goal to uncover the reasons behind humanity's aversion to war had led him to a deeper understanding of the transformative power of ethical governance and peaceful coexistence. This, he knew, was a lesson worth sharing far beyond the walls of the Academy. As Caxar's time at the Academy drew to a close, the impact of his research and the recent experiences he had gathered resonated deeply within the academic community and beyond. The insights from his thesis on the protocol and its application in human diplomacy had sparked considerable interest. Faculty members discussed incorporating these concepts into their curriculums, and students from various species expressed a desire to learn more about human strategies. On the eve of his departure from the Academy, Caxar found himself walking the quiet, luminescent paths of Zarnath's Central Park, reflecting on his transformative journey. The peaceful setting, with its softly glowing plants and tranquil water features, seemed a fitting backdrop for his contemplations. Lost in thought, Caxar barely noticed Captain Hale approaching until the man was almost beside him. "Caxar, taking a moment to enjoy the peace?" Hale asked, his tone friendly yet reflective. "Yes, Captain, it's a lot to take in, the end of a significant chapter in my life," Caxar replied, his gaze lingering on the shimmering surface of a nearby pond. "I've been reading the final draft of your thesis," Hale said, his voice indicating a mix of pride and seriousness. "You've done an exceptional job of articulating the principles of the protocol and the broader implications for galactic diplomacy. I believe your work will inspire many to rethink their approach to conflict and governance." Kaxar felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Captain. Your guidance was invaluable. But more than that, I've come to realize something crucial through my research and our discussions. The real strength of humanity isn't just in the systems you've built or the policies you've implemented. It's in the collective spirit, the shared commitment to a better path. Hale nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's a hard-won realization, Kaxar. Many see our tactics and strategies but miss the underlying unity and purpose that drive them. It's about more than avoiding war. It's about forging a sustainable peace that can endure across generations. As they walked together through the park, the conversation shifted to Kaxar's future. What will you do now, after the academy? Hale inquired. Kaxar looked determined, his eyes reflecting a new resolve. I plan to return to Riothra. There's much to do, much to change. Inspired by what I've learned here, I hope to influence our diplomatic strategies, perhaps even our educational systems. We have old conflicts that need new solutions, and I believe the principles of the protocol could help us achieve that. That sounds like a noble path, Kaxar, and a challenging one, Hale remarked, offering a supportive smile. But I have no doubt you're up to the task. Remember, change often starts with a single voice, a new idea taking root. As night deepened over Zarnath, the two paused on a bridge spanning the gently flowing waters of the park's main river. The reflective surface below mirrored the starry sky above, a symbol of the vast, interconnected galaxy they shared. Thank you, Captain, for everything, Kaxar said, extending his hand. I hope our paths cross again. Hale shook his hand firmly. They will, Kaxar. Keep in touch and let me know about your progress. Remember, you're now part of a larger effort to build peace across the stars. With that, they parted ways, each moving towards their respective futures. Kaxar felt a profound sense of purpose and possibility. The lessons from Earth and its people had not only enriched his understanding, but had given him a vision for a better future for his own world. As Kaxar boarded the transport back to Riothra the next morning, he carried with him more than just knowledge and memories. He carried a new perspective on power, leadership, and diplomacy. A perspective grounded in the potential for peace and the profound impact of mercy and strategic patience in the cosmic dance of interstellar relations.